Welcome back to Littles by Lyra. Today we're going to make a reusable keepsake gift bag. To begin, I take some parchment paper and I find an object that is round that will be the bottom of the gift bag. So I find something that I want for the width of whatever I'm making, which in this case is a bread plate. I take a pencil and I just trace around the outside. Next, I grab my paper scissors, not my fabric scissors, and I cut the circle out. And then I measure side to side of the circle to get the diameter. Now we're going to do a little bit of math. Don't be scared. As long as you have a calculator, this will be super easy for you. You are just going to take the circumference, which is C, equals pi times d, which is the diameter. So the circumference equals 3.14 times whatever the diameter of your object was. For me, it was 7.75. Then you grab your calculator and you figure out what your total number is, and that's your circumference. Super easy, right? Don't be scared. Math is not my strong point either. So I grab my calculator and it comes out to 24 and a bit, and I just round it up to 25 for ease of measuring. That way I'm not trying to figure out, how many eighths go into whatever my decimal is. Decimals and fractions are not my friends. I leave those to my husband. He's the math genius, not me. Next, I have some fabric that I have picked out specifically for this dice bag. Oh, I'm sorry. Not only can this be a keepsake gift bag, you can use it as a dice bag. If you've got friends who have a lot of dice and play tabletop games, this is great for it. You can use it as a little wristlet purse. If your fabric is big enough, you can make it into a custom gift bag for the really weird stuff that, it's hard to wrap. This is perfect for it, and it can be reused. So anyway, you're going to go ahead and iron out your fabric so that it's nice and flat. You can skip this step, but I find it makes cutting easier. I don't end up with weird wonky edges when all is said and done. And you're going to cut the inside and the outside. This bag is lined. You can skip this step, but it looks more finished in the end, in my humble opinion. To measure out the length and width of the dice bag, remember we talked the circumference was going to be about 25. I just folded my fabric in half and measured 12 and a half inches across, and I decided to make my keepsake gift bag 8 inches tall. And so 12 and a half across after folding, 8 inches up. There we go. So next, after that's cut out, I took my circular pattern and I cut out the two pieces for the bottom of the gift bag. Then I grab my sewing machine. You can use hot glue if this bag is not going to be run through the washing machine and or the dryer. But for me, I like the sewing machine. It's faster. I have a hard time with the hot glue on fabric. It never seems to work very well for me. But you go down to the open side, making sure the printed side, which is called the right sides, are together of the fabric. And you're just going to pin down the side. Grab your sewing machine, your hot glue, your stitch witchery, which is like a liquid glue for fabric, and you're going to seam the edges. Now, I don't know if you can see it very well or not. I used a zigzag stitch. This is not necessary, but I'm going to be doing some zigzag stitching later for a little bit of decoration. So for me, it's just easier to leave it on the zigzag the whole time instead of trying to play with my dials, because my sewing machine is on its way out. Poor old girl. She's a poor old girl, let me just tell you. So after I get the side seams done, I grab the circular piece that matches the fabric, obviously, and I'm just going to pin the circular piece all the way around the bottom. I start well, you know, it's typical for this channel, the north, south, east, and west, and then just fill in the spaces in between for pinning. I like to start where the seam is and fold the two pieces down, the one on either side where the seam is. That way when I sew, I don't get a weird little lump. Then, once I have all of that done, I grab my sewing machine again and I just sew around the bottom. Now, I want to apologize if you hear any sniffling. As always, it's an allergy day, so apologies ahead of time for that, or afterwards. I don't think I've sniffled yet, but just in case I did, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be rude. Also, I'm sorry for the lateness of this video, but my sister-in-law's son is getting married in 2 weeks, and she's making a dollar dance bag for our bride-to-be. So this works great. She can hang it on her wrist during the dollar dance, place her dollar bills in there with each of the dancing, and she can keep it close to her and small, and it's lovely. You can do all sorts of things with these bags once you get the basic gist of it. There's covering it in lace, you can embroider it, you can do beadwork on it, pretty much whatever you want. You can cut out other pieces of fabric and glue them or sew them into place. So say you've got a romantic forest print and you just happen to have a little Disney princess fabric scrap left over, you can cut the princesses out and have them, you know, running through the forest. That's also, you know, fun and pretty. So apparently I want to show you how to do all of the pinning for the first piece. I won't make you watch the second one, but I'm hoping that you get the basic gist of what I'm doing here. Like I said, it's really simple. Once you get 4 sides of the circle, which aren't technically sides since the circle is basically just one big side, but like if you were pretending it was a compass, there's a north, the top, there's a south, the bottom, an east, the right, a west, the left, and just fill in with your pins around the bottom. Once you get the pins in, I recommend standing the gift bag up with the base on a flat surface and pushing all your pins out or in towards the center so that you can sew it more easily or glue it more easily. Okay, so you see here that I am running over my pins. Just a fun PSA. Don't do that. Pull them out as you go around, because I ended up breaking one of my sewing machine needles while doing this. Also, Lyra wanted to say hi, kind of. All right, so now I'm going to take the bag, and on the opposite side from where the seam is, I'm going to measure down about 1 inch, and using the buttonhole feature on my sewing machine, I'm going to make just a small 1/4 inch square buttonhole. This is where we're going to thread the lace through, string, lace, twine, whatever you choose to use, through the bag, and it'll come out here and be able to be tied. You can just make a regular snip in the bag and use that, but after regular use, wear and tear, it'll start to fray and become kind of yucky. Unless, of course, like you use denim. That might actually look really cool. If you have a grommet punch and setter, that would be really nice too. I do not have one, so I just use my sewing machine's buttonhole setting. Next, we're going to line up the seams. Oh, and you only want to do that for the outside of the bag. You don't need it for the inside. Next, we're going to take the 2 bags that we've made, and we're going to have them right sides together, so we can sew them around the top and get the bags to hold together. Thus, we've created our lining and the exterior of the bag. I like to put the seams together in the pinning process Again, it keeps the bumps and weirdness away. And, you know, it looks like a continuous seam from the inside of the bag to the outside of the bag. You don't have to, but in my opinion, this makes it look a whole lot more finished. Then I make sure to use 2 different pins to mark where I want the opening of the bag to be to turn this to the right side out. So I start at the first colored pin, go around and stop at the second colored pin. And as you saw, pull your pins as you're sewing. Then you're just going to turn it right side out. It may take a little bit of finagling depending on how big the hole is, but you will get there eventually. Once it's turned right side out, you're just going to tuck the lining down to the inside of the bag. And I took some pins and went around doing my best to make sure that the lining and the exterior of the bag match up, like with a sharp crease, and then pin them in place. I'm going to take that zigzag stitch from the sewing machine and just sew around so that the lining doesn't try to pull out on me. It also will keep the cord from slipping down into the bag after I have gone through and threaded it through the bag. Now I still have that little opening, so I'm just going to take some, I think this one was cross-stitching floss, and I'm just going to do a simple blanket stitch around the entire top of the bag. This will give it a nice texture. I think it's kind of masculine, you know, the blanket stitch, as opposed to doing little fluffy flowers or whatever. You can just hand sew with little tiny stitches to get that piece closed, but I think the blanket stitch works, and rather than just have it stop where the bag had an opening, again, I just went all the way around. For the blanket stitch, just pull the needle through, flip that loop right here over top of the needle, and finish pulling through. So it'll have a stitch, and then it'll have a little line across the top, and then a stitch, and a little line across the top. I believe this is called the blanket stitch. If I'm wrong, please correct me. I'm kind of new to embroidery, not super fast at it, but I really enjoy doing it, and been practicing and getting better at it. So, like I said, stitch, flip that little piece of thread over top, and keep going. Next, I have this rat-tailed cord. I got it at Hobby Lobby on sale. I think it turned out to be $1.50 when all was said and done. And I just burned the ends off to keep them from fraying. I do both sides, and I pulled off about 3 feet of the cord. Then I put the cord onto a safety pin, and I'm going to use the safety pin as a needle, closed of course, to work my way around the inside of the bag to get this cording all the way through. Then, once it comes out, I'll just tie the ends. That way they can't pull out through the bag. You'd be surprised how many people somehow, after only 1 or 2 uses, get that that cord to pull through. I don't know how they do it. I never seem to have that problem with my own, but hey, it's what it is. So, as you can see here, the bag cinches up nice and neat, and the cord just ties in a lovely little bow in the front. And there you have it. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great week. Bye.